When the former Prime Minister, Malcolm Turnbull, was trying to placate Conservative coalition MPs last year during the same-sex marriage debate, he promised an inquiry into religious freedom. But that's backfired on his successor, Scott Morrison, after crucial findings in the report were leaked to the media last week. Prime Minister Morrison has now announced his government will legislate to prevent discrimination against children attending religious schools. Chief Political Correspondent Laura Tingle joined me from Parliament House. Laura Tingle, what's prompted the Prime Minister to make this move and what's been Labor's response?
Lee, there's one word for it, which is Wentworth. This issue exploded on the government last week. They've been trying to keep it in a box until after the Wentworth by-election. The Prime Minister, as you said, was forced to come out with a statement saying they'd legislate to protect children from being discriminated against. But the real target of this policy was about teachers in religious schools, and Labor has now challenged the government to also move and protect teachers from discrimination, which isn't yet happening.
It's far from the only issue that'll play into the Wentworth by-election though, Laura.
That's true, Lee. It's going to be the classic protest by-election. Voters are angry about Malcolm Turnbull being removed. They're angry about climate change. They're now angry about religious freedom. And they're also angry about asylum seekers. It's become a big issue, and if that wasn't enough of a concern, the government now faces a complaint to the United Nations about the fact that families on Nauru and Manus Island are being separated by the policy. In Adelaide, little 18-month-old Mohammed has never met his father, Honey, who is stuck 4,800 kilometres away on the island of Nauru. Mohammed was born in Australia after his gravely ill mother, who was asked to be called Tina for security reasons, was medically evacuated from the tiny Pacific island during her pregnancy.
It's heartbreaking for him. I want him to have a father figure.
Tina and Mohammed are among a group of families separated by the quirks of Australia's border protection policy and without any apparent way out, despite having been assessed as refugees.
Even the government support family being together. So yes, I think if they change their mind, we will end up to be together.
Increasingly, the family separations occur because people on Nauru and Manus are getting sick.
I had pregnancy complication, so I was midweek to Australia in 2017 to give birth to my baby.
Tina gave birth to her baby boy alone while her husband remained on Nauru.
It was heartbreaking because we waited for our child for 5 years. So, yeah.
This is a room for 4 people, 2 bunk beds up and down. That's their space.
There are now fewer than 1,500 asylum seekers left on Nauru and Manus Island, the ugliest and most difficult part of our border protection policy. Interventions by the Australian Medical Association and, last week, the Nauruan government stopping Doctors Without Borders providing mental health services has upped the pressure further.
MSF is extremely concerned for the ongoing mental health of all our patients remaining on the island, including asylum seekers and refugees, who remain in a complete state of hopelessness and despair.
As the CBD staff is also not working, there is no water here.
We can't see any reason why they should remain on Nauru any longer.
The Australian Medical Association has also demanded an urgent fix to what it describes as a humanitarian emergency on Nauru.
We've put out a resolution, a call that all children on Nauru and their families be taken off the island.
The politics of this issue are also changing. Polling shows that voters want a tough line against boat arrivals, but that opinion has become increasingly uneasy about people left stranded in offshore detention, and it is likely to play out in the Wentworth by-election. Rebecca Huntley is one of Australia's best-known pollsters and says it's become a critical political issue.
As some voters and some groups that I've conducted have said, it's a failed experiment. They see offshore detention as not orderly, as disorderly, as dysfunctional, as well as cruel.
Families have been separated By a technicality as simple as being on boats that arrived either side of a July 19 announcement by Kevin Rudd in 2013.
People who come by boat now have no prospect of being resettled in Australia.
That meant some family members were destined for offshore detention with no way of ever getting to Australia. In the case of the Ahmed family, the quirk of fate was the simple shortage of one extra seat in a minivan in Indonesia. So their father, Nasser, sent the family ahead and arrived on a different boat after the July 19 policy change. 9-year-old Rishman was 5 when he last saw his father. What would be the first thing that you'd like to do with your dad if you got to see him again?
If I see him again, I want to go somewhere and I want to surprise him and stuff when I see him. And my mom is really hoping him to come into Australia. If he come, I wish to play soccer with him and go places where he could take me.
The only contact the Ahmed family have with their father is through this scratchy connection.
Ba, ciao.
The poignancy of their separation is only compounded by the circumstances in which it arose. 21-year-old Sahana is studying to be a chemist. She has spoken to politicians in Canberra about her father and her family's predicament. Is there any sympathy for your situation amongst politicians?
Yeah, they listen to my story really well. They said they will talk to their other colleagues about our story, but since then nothing happened yet.
The Ahmed family and Tina and her family are now included in a complaint to the United Nations human rights body.
Well, this complaint is being brought by 63 people from 14 families. So mothers, children, fathers who have been needlessly and indefinitely ripped apart by the Australian government. If the Immigration Minister or the Prime Minister just tick a box on a form tomorrow, these mums and dads and kids can be back together with the people in the world that they love the most.
What do you understand about what that complaint means for you?
It's the last hope to reunite all of my family. Yeah. I think I did everything I can to bring him here. This is just my last hope.
And 7:30 gave Immigration Minister David Coleman a number of opportunities to be interviewed for that story, but he declined. In a written statement, he said the department doesn't comment on individual cases, that anyone who arrived in Australia by boat on or after the 19th of July 2013 will never resettle in Australia, and that medical transfer is not a pathway to settlement. You can find a full statement on our website.